I love GURPS, but I don't think that it is perfect. There are some flaws, both objective flaws and subjective personal gripes, and I would like to talk about them in this video. However, many of the things that I dislike can be fixed with house rules, but I am not going to talk about those. I want to talk about things that I cannot fix, at least yet. The first issue that I have with GURPS is its objective flaw. The rules are all over the place. Many of the rules are spread across different parts of the book or across multiple books. For example, rules about shield usage. Blocking is in one section of the basic set, shield bashes and feints are in another, shield rush is in yet another, damaging shields is hidden away in a box in the technology and artifacts chapter, and then there is the close combat penalty for using a large shield that is only mentioned in the list of penalties at the very end of the book. What if you want more advanced rules? Then you might want to check several places in GURPS Martial Arts, GURPS Low-Tech Companion 2 and Shields Up. Rules for using nets might be an even better example, as they do not really work properly if you just use the basic set. And to use them properly you would need GURPS Basic Set, GURPS Low-Tech, GURPS Martial Arts Technical Grappling, and DFRPG Adventurers. Oh boy! In some cases this separation makes sense, I understand why it's all spread out, but it doesn't make it any easier to use. I have been playing GURPS for a long time, but I still have to look up many of the rules during the game, but due to my experience I at least know where to look. But if you are a new player, then this is going to be a nightmare. If only there was something like an SRD for GURPS, where you have a page, for example, for shields, and where you can find all the information about shields consolidated on a single web page. Things like that would help immensely, regardless of whether you are a new player or a veteran. But alas, this is never going to happen due to the strict policies of SJ Games. The second problem I have with GURPS is its occasional internal inconsistency. Emphasis on occasional. GURPS proudly makes its internal consistency one of its main selling points, and most of the times it really is consistent, despite there being dozens upon dozens of books, and I commend both the authors and the editors who keep it that way. But sometimes certain minor things slip through the cracks. For example, candles. Candles can be found in GURPS Basic Set, GURPS Dungeon Fantasy 1 Adventurers, and GURPS Low-Tech. The numbers do not stay the same between the books. The same applies to such items as ladders, manacles, paper, pythons, torches, and some other things. But I'm not only talking about the gear. Sometimes a modifier for an advantage costs, for example, minus 10% in one book, but minus 5% in another book. This isn't a deal breaker for me, but just a minor irritation. However, there are some inconsistencies in wording that may affect some characters quite significantly. For example, GURPS Basic Set says that unbalanced weapons cannot be used to parry if you attacked on the same turn, or to attack if you used it to parry. All other books drop the latter half. Likewise, GURPS Basic Set says that knives cannot be used to parry flails, but this is never ever brought up again in other books. Another significant inconsistency is the illumination rules. There are like 4 illumination penalty tables and they all are different. The same can be said about the way light sources work. This might result in some miscommunication with your players. While you, as a GM, might think that the torch only brings down the illumination penalties to -3, your players might think that they eliminate them completely in a certain radius, and all of you would be right. When it comes to elimination, you should probably spell out in the game rules which table is used. I'm not even going to mention GURPS Ultratech that has many other examples of rules not being consistent. The third issue is more of a personal gripe that I have with GURPS. Some advantages are very clunky. I cringe every time I have to use injury tolerance, diffuse, insubstantiality, or shapeshifting on one of the templates. Diffuse beings are a mechanical nightmare in GURPS. Rules written in different places sometimes contradict one another. Some other rules are very vague. For example, most creatures cannot grapple diffuse beings, but there is nothing about diffuse creatures being unable to grapple others. You should also keep in mind that diffuse beings still have necks and heads, and that if you have to exclude them, you have to include manually such advantages as injury tolerance, no head and no neck, even though most of the existing pre-written templates do not include these. They also have eyes by default, so you can target them for extra damage. In some cases this makes sense, but for example, if you are a swarm of tiny beings that have eyes, targeting the eyes should not do anything, but a blinding attack would still blind you. So you probably have to take a limited version of no eyes. All in all, this is a total mess. Insubstantiality is also a pain in the neck when starting up, as the advantage is price actually depends on whether or not you have other advantages or abilities that may affect substantial beings. And this is not some minor price increase, it doubles the price. But what, for example, if you take insubstantiality without affects substantial, and then get buffed with an ability that does let you affect substantial beings? Does it simply not work? I strongly dislike using modifying existing damage rules from GURPS Power-Ups 4, as they do not work well in situations where a character does not have static capabilities. Shapeshifting is very complex, but I think that it's the least offender of the three. I understand why it works like it does, but it's still a thorn in my side when I start things up. The fourth thing that I dislike is crafting mechanics. While the GURPS basic set has something along the lines of just make the numbers up and make a skill roll, GURPS Low-Tech Companion 3 has very detailed crafting rules that are way too clunky and complex, and that's coming from me. I believe that there must be a middle ground between these two options, but I don't know how to make anything satisfying in that aspect. The fifth problem is another personal gripe that nobody else probably cares about: traits and modifiers without costs. Some books provide monster stat blocks that include traits or modifiers that cannot be found anywhere else, and some of them are really cool. For example, how demons from GURPS Dungeon Fantasy Monsters 5 demons can have Divine Curse, holy water counts as acid, and Divine Curse reversed healing, or how the Ptalant lizard from GURPS Creatures of the Night Volume 1 has an ability to create earthquakes with a control advantage. But you do not get the character point cost for them, so if you want to build a character with such abilities, you're out of luck. It's as if the author showed you a cool thing but then also flipped you off and told you that you cannot use it. I just hate it. And I think that's it. Sure, there are many other things that I dislike, such as the swing damage progression, but they all can easily be fixed. Sometimes, when you're building a power, you get some ridiculous prices for minor abilities. I have heard that using multiplicative modifiers often solves this, but I'm still afraid of trying them out, as they would require me to recalculate basically everything. But anyway, that's it for me, but what do you not like about GURPS? Feel free to tell me in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.